is resuming its study of the opioid epidemic and toxic drug crisis in Canada. I'd like to welcome our panel of witnesses. We have Dr. Sarah Larney, Associate Professor at the University of Montreal, online. Sarah MacDonald and Lance Charles are with us in the room. Representing the First Nations Health Authority, Dr. Cornelia Wyman, Chief Medical Officer, online. And representing the Vancouver Island Construction Association, Roy Kulmala, Chief Executive Officer, also by video conference. Thank you all for taking the time to be with us today. As you, I'm sure, have been informed, you will have up to 5 minutes for your opening statements, and then we'll proceed with rounds of questions. We're going to begin with Dr. Larney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And if I can start off by saying, Mr. Chair, thank you for allowing our witnesses the time that they deserve to tell their story. I'm going to focus my my questions on Mr. Charles and Ms. MacDonald. I want to thank you guys for your strength, and I don't know if I would have had the same strength that you have, and so I thank you for that. If you could send one message to Justin Trudeau about the failed drug policies, what would it be?
How can you put safe and drugs in the same sentence? It doesn't make any sense. Those two contradict each other deeply. And the policy, you should just look at those two words and it should tell you and give you an answer right there. Safe and drugs don't mix.
The system failed, Brianna. We just needed one adult to stand up in the room to fight for you. You begged doctors and you begged those people that should have been there to do no harm and to help your daughter. What was the message that you got?
That the help wasn't there. The doctors kept sending us away. And it kind of sent a message that really...
It didn't matter.
It didn't matter at all. That she didn't matter. And her mental health didn't matter.
I think I read somewhere that you were essentially told if she wanted to kill herself, that's her choice. Is that true?
Yes.
Very true.
Do you believe that Brianna would be alive today if she got the help that she needed, the mental health help?
I believe not only would she be here today, but she'd be able to speak out on her own situation and what she's gone through. I believe if the help was there and available, her beautiful smile would still be here.
And just to be clear, Brianna had just turned 13?
Yeah, just in July 15th.
So she was just a month into her 13th year. July 15th, did you say? It's the same day as my son's birthday. And I should note that she passed away on my daughter's birthday. What does Brianna's story say about the state of mental health care in Canada?
Pretty much that it's broken. The system that is designed to be there to help her and guide her through life, especially when it comes to struggling with mental health, it just isn't there. And whenever we did approach doctors about change and how to get her help, she was either too young for programs or there was no programs at all.
They allowed a 13-year-old to write their own safety release plans, is that correct?
Correct.
She wrote on that plan that she was a very manipulative little girl And my question is, why was a child allowed to write her own safety release plan when doctors are supposed to be doing that? Because they're the adults. They're the ones deciding on how her safety is supposed to be, not a child that's unwell.
Powerless.
Absolutely.
From the time she ended up on the streets to her death, how long was that?
Almost 4 weeks.
It was, sorry?
Almost 4 weeks.
And her drugs of choice were Molly and fentanyl?
Molly, fentanyl, anything she could really get her hands on. Molly was her
Molly was her DOC.
that was her drug of choice, yes.
Are safe injection, safe consumption sites working?
No,
Absolutely not.
no, they don't discriminate against age, and they keep providing kits to these children. And it's very easy access.
It's everywhere. You can't go anywhere without seeing it now. It used to be taboo to see a joint being smoked on the street. Now you can walk by people smoking crack. It's disgusting.
We sat at an A&W once having lunch. This was 12 o'clock in the afternoon, broad daylight. And I had to tell my stepson to literally not look out the window because there was 6 people sitting there cooking their heroin down to be able to inject it right out the window where we're having lunch. That's not acceptable. That's not what I call safe.
Have our communities become less safe in recent years?
Absolutely, and I believe they're getting even more unsafe as the days pass.
Thank you, Mr. Doherty. Thank you, Mr. Charles. Next,
Mr. Charles, Ms. McDonald, why did Brianna start using drugs, and at what age did she start?
Using drugs at about 10 and a half, shortly after me and her stepfather broke up, and she just wasn't handling it very well.
And she also wanted to drown out the demons and the voices that she kept hearing.
Okay. Is safe supply really safe?
How could you have safe supply and drugs in the same sentence? There's no such thing as safe drugs, period.
Would safe supply have saved Brianna?
No.
Do you feel that Brianna was a victim of failed drug policy?
I feel it isn't just the failed against the drug policy. I feel she's failed by the system, public health system as a whole. There was many different layers of failure. That was just one of them.
Can you tell us a little bit more about Chayton?
He was a loving little boy, very gentleman.
Him and Brianna would sit on the phone for hours, conversating back and forth with each other. They just absolutely adored each other. They were best of friends. Mm-hmm. They've known each other for the last few years and have fed off each other, good and bad.
Yeah.
And he really took it personal, and I really feel sorry for that.
What can the federal government do to make sure tragedies like Brianna and Chayton never happen again?
Make changes to the public health policy. Start giving more funding and providing more educational backgrounds for these health workers that need it. Doctors, there needs to be more training. To be honest with you, it seems like, mental health in children is being overlooked. And these doctors and psychologists and psychiatric care people, there's just not enough that they don't understand. Like I said to Mr. Johns, down in the States, they are diagnosing children with mental health Why can't we do that here in Canada? What's the difference?
You said that the drugs in our community are getting worse and worse. Are you seeing the diversion of safe supply into our into the hands of our kids and into the neighborhoods that in Abbotsford?
Let's put it in this perspective, Mr. Doherty. When a child can go up and get a bag of items to do safe injection and prepare their drugs and literally walk out that door, there's a drug dealer standing right there. Just like what happened in Nanaimo just recently. They were given the Safe Harm kits in the front, and out the back door the drugs were flying.
Wow.
So I think that is enough of a statement to prove that, yes, it's becoming alarming.
I've got about a minute left. What else would you want our nation and those in this room to know about Brianna?
That she's a very loving, beautiful, caring girl. She was taken way too soon. She was so compassionate. She had so much potential. She was so smart. She loved to research everything so much. And I wish she was here to share her side of the story right now.
She was robbed of her life, and I feel that she had so much potential to being a powerful individual because she always took other people's problems and she made them her own, and she took it seriously. It didn't matter what it was, how big or small. She was a powerful individual, and I believe with the right education and treatment, and she was able to finish schooling, I'd feel she would be a perfect fit to be in this room with all of us. She was that intelligent.
Thank you for sharing that with us, and thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Doherty. Ms.
As the local MP for our community of Abbotsford, thank you for being here. You mentioned the Cyrus Center. I live just off George Ferguson. This is around the corner of my house. Thank you for sharing your story. If you could send one message to the Minister of Mental Health and Addictions about some of the failed drug policies we have in Canada, what would that be?
That we need more help. The healthcare providers need way more help. There just isn't enough. I get it, there's an opioid crisis going on and there's a lot of people dying from drugs. But the mental health aspect is a big leading factor. And we can't overlook mental health. Drug use and mental health issues go hand in hand. And in order for it to stop, we need more funding.
As you know, the government of British Columbia and Canada signed a special agreement for decriminalization of hard drugs in British Columbia. Is it your experience that it became easier for children to get drugs since decrim began? And how did Brianna generally get her drugs?
I believe it did, actually. The decriminalization of drug use and possession of drugs actually increased the drugs coming to British Columbia. It lowered the prices. It made it easier to acquire because, hey, your mental health medication, a lot is experimental and you have to pay out of pocket, and it's not always covered. But the drugs can replace that, and people were replacing the mental health pills and prescriptions with the hard drugs. And as per Brianna getting her drugs, she used a lot of it through 16 and 15-year-old kids. And these 16 and 15-year-old kids they actually got really ballsy and showed up at our house one evening. And I actually had to escort them out of my neighborhood.
I'm just going to ask one more brief question and before I turn it over to MP Goodridge. But as a parent in the public school system in Abbotsford as well, what role does the Abbotsford School District have to play in keeping our kids safe?
I feel there should be more police liaisons. I feel they should be checking the children before they even come to school. If found with drugs on them, they should be punished and realize that it is wrong. And they shouldn't be having access to these drugs. Nobody should.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your daughter's story with us and being here. So Justin Trudeau has brought forward the most radical drug policies our country's ever seen. And as you said, flooded the streets with hard drugs, made it so that it was legal for kids and adults to have crack, meth, and even your daughter's drug of choice, Molly or ecstasy. Do you believe that the policy choices that were made by this Prime Minister attributed to your daughter's death?
Yes, I do. To be honest with you, I feel like this experiment, and I'm going to call it an experiment, was directed towards our children. It was directed towards the people that were struggling with mental health. And the fact that she was able to acquire these drugs on a massive level and very easily at her own age, I do believe his policy is what really, led to her death. It's not just his policy. It's the fact that there's lack of funding for the mental health.
So if you could tell him he has the ability with the stroke of a pen to change these policies today, do you think he should?
Absolutely. To be honest with you, we need to protect our children, and he needs to start realizing this. To protect our children, to save the lives of, beautiful, innocent people that deserve this. These are our children. And myself being status First Nations, it is our job to protect them. And it's his job to help us protect them. Why can't he do that? Put the pen to the paper. Let's get more funding for the people and the children. And let's stop this. And let's do it all together from the top right down to where we are as parents.
Thank you, Mr.
We
Charles.
need more rights.
Next, Ms. Seeds.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just to follow up on the questions from Dr. Pawlowski, so they only kept her 2 times in the 20 plus times you took her into the hospital for suicide attempts, is that correct? How often, when you're dealing with this kind of situation, I'm assuming that there are many times that you didn't have the opportunity or you chose not to take her to the hospital. How often were you dealing with this, and do you feel like enough was being done to help you?
This was going on daily, and her attempts were almost weekly at the end, if not every other week. They were pretty bad, and we didn't go to the hospital quite often because we knew we would just be sent home and it was a waste of time.
I'm so sorry. I'm going to switch gears a little bit. Mr. Kumala, your tailgate toolkit includes resources for people to be able to access what you call safe supply. And so my question is, are workers permitted to use safe supply while on the work site?
No, and I think there's an underlying requirement. We have zero tolerance for impairment on a job site, and again, we haven't seen, and I can say that I haven't had a report of somebody actually dying on a job site who's actively using. Again, this is, and I'm sure from a medical point of view, the levels of impairment are broad, but we don't accept that on a job site.
So you do not allow employees to use drugs on the work site. You're a safety-sensitive employment location, and so you think that this safe supply is just good for other people to use? I'm confused.
No. No, I think what we're trying to do is provide the resources are available. We're advocating for wellness, and where there are safe supply, where we're telling people when they get home, if you're going to use it, there's a way to stay alive. And as I've said before, we're just trying to throw them a life ring. We're not teaching them how to swim. That's not our job. Our job is to provide awareness.
So, what funding do you receive from the federal or provincial government in British Columbia?
We receive funding through the provincial government from the Ministry of Ministry of Health and Addictions to provide the tailgate throughout the province.
So if an employee were to get into an incident of some sort, test positive, they have hydromorphone in their system, what's the next step?
Well, the next step would typically be through their health and safety processes with the particular contractor. Again, it's not about trying to give them an opportunity at the job site to get high.
Okay, so is the next step often referring them to treatment?
It could be. The first thing is to suspend them. If they're clearly impaired on the job site, they get suspended. Then there'll be a path of investigation to suggest treatment or, other employment remedies.
Okay, so effectively there is zero tolerance for drug use on site, but you do give people the tools for if they choose to use drugs to do it, but you tell them that they're not allowed to use drugs at site. I feel like this is a bit of a revolving door of interestingness. So how do you actually support employees that are coming back that do choose to take treatment?
Well, we're an industry association, so we're just advocating. We provide basically a workbook of resources of where they can go. This is determinant at the employer level, how they can treat them, what they do, and how they support their workers up to them, not us as an association. We are basically taking the tools that are available, that are out there, putting them into some type of resource package that says, here's what's there. Whether we like it or not, whether safe supply, we're not here to debate that. We're here to say, here's what it is, here's how you can get help.
Do you think there should be more resources available for treatment?
Oh, clearly. I think when it looks at the remedies of pain management, mental health, those are all stemming to really drive, and again, that's a personal issue. That's nothing to do with the construction sector, but yes, there is lots of room for improvements. I think as we've heard from Mr. Charles and Ms. McDonald from a very young age, and certainly with the doctors on the panel, there is opportunity to make this better.
So you're promoting drug use in your toolbox toolkit, your tailgate toolbox kits. Do you also promote treatment from addictions?
We're not promoting treatment, madam. We're promoting awareness. We're promoting information that people, if you do need help, this is where you can get it.
So
Thank you.
in your
Thank you, Ms. Goodrich.
Well, thank you very much, Chair, and Mr. Charles and Ms. McDonald for being here. And I apologize for not being here earlier, but I have read your testimony, and thank you for that. Thank you for telling Brianna's story to Canadians. I just wanted to really focus, if I might, on, now I realize you're not experts in this, but you do have obviously significant lived experience, but if you had to design a system talking about a couple of things, prevention of drug use and then rehabilitation afterwards, what advice would you leave us here and for all Canadians?
Well, it's not all about time. Time is the key, honestly. The more it's all based on how these children are. Every child is different. Every person is different. There shouldn't be a time specific. If it takes longer, they deserve longer. If treatment isn't working, there should be a broad spectrum availability of research just to be able to develop treatments for other people. Some do work for some, but not all. It can't be just a blanket. It needs needs to be research, and there needs to be a lot of time put into deciding which paths to move forward. I don't think there's one solid good answer, but I believe that if time, structure, education, all of these things were followed, there'd be a good program in place, and this stuff wouldn't happen to our children and our people.
Thank you very much, Mr. Charles. When we're talking a bit about prevention, obviously this is the Health Committee, but that falls under perhaps education. You know, do you believe that there should be programs in schools to educate kids on the harms of drugs and you know, that type of messaging out there, what drugs look like, what they can do to you? Do you have any thoughts on that at all, sir?
I do think that there should be some sort of, because there is for sex ed and stuff. Why isn't there for drug education?
I'm with her on this one, but at the same time, you have to be sensitive. These are child's minds. They are undeveloped. They don't deserve to really know these things just yet. Maybe in the teenage years, yes, but it's the same thing with the sex ed programs. They're teaching them younger and younger these days, and this is just now allotting for children to think, hey, look, I can think like an adult. I'm learning about stuff that adults know. It's making them comfortable, too comfortable. So I believe the education should be there, but very sensitive to what the child's mind is, because it is undeveloped.
Thank you very much. That's an excellent point. We have to be cautious with the messages we're giving and at what ages. I think that's very well said. Maybe if we turn our attention a bit to looking at, you know, the criminal element in this entire problem. Again, what advice would you give to the Canadian government to say, you know what, obviously there's a criminal element here. People are selling drugs, people are making them illegally, etc. Do you have any ideas perhaps around punishment and you know, jail time, etc., efforts that we're making on that front that should be different?
I believe the criminal justice system should actually be a little bit more strict and actually should really crack down the whip on these drug dealers and people that are selling drugs, and especially to children. I believe that this revolving door that's happening, and this system that's actually failing these, because these criminals are getting locked up for a couple months at tops, and then they're back out, and they just keep doing it back and forth nonstop. They don't care, because they're making money, and that's all it is about money. I believe that stricter policies should shut this revolving door. If they are caught doing it, you know, more than once, there should be an indefinite suspension, that they should be kept there, because these are the people that are killing our children. I feel that, you know, these policies that are in place right now need to be really updated a lot. I feel the justice system needs to stand strong and stand by the people that matter, and that is the parents of these children that are dying.